United States has cut off another $60 million in federal grants to Harvard University. The move, announced by the Department of Health and Human Services, is the latest escalation in an intensifying political battle between the Ivy League school and the Trump administration. In a statement posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, HHS said the decision was made due to what it called Harvard's continued failure to address anti Semitic harassment and race discrimination. The department emphasized that federal funds should support institutions that protect all students, adding that discrimination on campus will not be tolerated. These multi-year grants, totaling around $60 million, are just the latest to be pulled. The Trump administration has already frozen more than $2.2 billion in federal grants to Harvard. Education Secretary Linda McMahon added fuel to the fire earlier this month, stating that Harvard would no longer receive public funding for research. In a sharply worded letter to the university, she accused it of making a mockery of higher education. She wrote, and I quote, Harvard will cease to be a publicly funded institution. It can operate instead as a privately funded one, relying on its colossal endowment and wealthy alumni network. End quote. Harvard is not taking the cuts lightly. The university has sued the administration, arguing that the funding freeze violates the First Amendment and federal law. Specifically, Harvard contends that the president is prohibited from directing the Internal Revenue Service to launch or halt an investigation, something it believes has occurred. In response to the financial blow, Harvard President Alan Garber said last week that the university would tap into its own reserves. He announced that $250 million would be used from Harvard's internal funds to keep research going. This feud goes back to March, when President Trump began pushing for new federal rules targeting elite schools that had hosted pro-Palestinian protests. These demonstrations, he claimed, were illegal and anti-Semitic. But student leaders pushed back, saying their protests were peaceful and aimed at highlighting human rights violations in Gaza. They called attention to the rising civilian death toll and what they describe as acts of genocide by the Israeli government. The administration issued its first round of funding freezes in April. At the time, Harvard rejected a series of demands from Washington, calling them excessive and politically motivated. These demands included revamping its disciplinary policies, removing diversity initiatives, and agreeing to outside audits of programs labeled anti-Semitic by federal officials. President Trump and his allies have also accused Harvard and other prestigious universities of promoting extreme left-wing ideologies and silencing conservative voices. Now, with another $60 million in funding gone and more lawsuits on the table, the standoff between the White House and Harvard is becoming a major flashpoint in the national debate over academic freedom, campus politics, and the limits of presidential power.